Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my Gameweek 17 transfer plans. I've got 2 free transfers and I will 100% be using both of them. If you do enjoy today's video, please do smash that like button. Make sure to subscribe as well. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So Game Week 16 was another very unpredictable week for FPL, and that seems to be the theme of the season in the 2023-24 season. I can't predict a single thing that happens. Even now that there are starting to be clean sheets, I still wouldn't be able to predict the teams that are going to get those clean sheets week on week. And we'll start to bring in now defenders from teams that are, and then it will be other teams, I'm sure. And then when I'm trying to predict games and teams that there'll be a lot of goals for, again, I'm struggling to do that. So I don't think this is just me. I don't think this is a Raptor issue. I think this is everyone. It's just struggling to work out what is happening in the Premier League this season and in FPL. I mean, I actually predict a lot of the games, both on the stream and in different games that I play. I predict which way the Premier League games will go. And I think I got basically every game wrong on Sunday. So that just goes to show how difficult it is to predict at the moment. But at least there are starting to be more clean sheets. Sadly for me, though, there don't seem to be any clean sheets for me. So I didn't pick up a single clean sheet. And as you can see here, Dubravka 2, Simicast 2, James 1, Gakey, Taylor also 1, and then a Trippier -1. So my defense continues to really let me down. But I think for a lot of us, that seems to be the case. And going into Game Week 17, my defense is a disaster. 2 suspensions and injury. It's a bit of a mess. But let's just go through each of the players. So Dubravka and Trippier, Newcastle are struggling massively on 2 fronts. They're not very good away from home. And on top of that, they just seem so fatigued and their squad is so thin that they just seem to be there for the taking at the moment. So they're not the Newcastle that we've seen recently. But I do think that will start to improve soon. They've got a few players coming back. For example, we saw the return of Wilson. Barnes looks very close to being back to full fitness as well. Longstaff was back. So I do think they have players returning. Botman should be back soon too. And I do think that Newcastle, I don't think they'll continue to be this bad for the foreseeable future. I think there'll be a return to form very soon. So I'm not too worried about Newcastle, but maybe this isn't the time to be going out and buying Newcastle assets because they don't look quite at it at the moment. On the other hand, Spurs were fantastic, right? Son picking up a 17-pointer. It was great to get confirmation that he was on penalties because Richarlison was on the pitch, Richarlison was on for a hat-trick, and Son still took the penalty. So that was massive. Son continues to be, in my opinion, the 3rd best asset in FPL. You've got Haaland is the best, Salah is the 2nd best, and Son is comfortably the 3rd best asset in FPL. So if you don't own him, he's still a fantastic buy, whether he plays on the left, whether he plays through the middle. I don't care about the fixtures. Heung-min Son is fantastic. And like I say, getting that confirmation that he's on pens was fantastic. Simicast, Salah, Darwin, that was the first game of the game week. It was very disappointing for 70 minutes, and Simicast and Darwin disappointed for the entire game. But Salah picking up that 13-pointer was great. Obviously, for a lot of you, when Haaland didn't feature, you had the vice-captain on Salah, so you also got those Salah points. I'm a little bit disappointed because getting that 13-pointer, I was like, even if Haaland scores a brace, they're equal. So I was actually feeling confident going against Haaland, but I think in general, I am quite lucky that Haaland picked up the injury because who knows what he could have done to Luton. I know City struggled a bit, but you never know. If Haaland was on the pitch, maybe City win 4 or 5-0. So, yeah, a little bit lucky. But also, I think Haaland, captainers, maybe could have got a little bit lucky as well, simply because Salah did haul and at least their vice-captain got them some points. But Simicast and Darwin, very disappointing. I don't know what to do with Darwin because he's still getting chances and he's got Manchester United next week. But also there are some other really nice options such as a Solanke. So we'll discuss in the next section what I'll be doing with Darwin, but not an easy one, I don't think. And Simicast, just a little bit disappointing. I was hoping he'd get something against Crystal Palace. I'll discuss James and Palmer next. Everton versus Chelsea. Everton are just brilliant at the moment. And I mean, especially at Goodison Park, but from a defensive perspective, impeccable. I can't believe I had Pickford at the start of the season, sold him, and since then I think he's got 4 or 5 clean sheets and bonus points he seems to be picking up. So that's disappointing. But Chelsea didn't look very good once again. James getting 1, Palmer getting 1. James obviously picking up the injury. Do you know what? You can comment down below, told you so, because you did tell me so, and I was still willing to take the risk, and that is completely on me. I will not sit here and complain about James getting injured because I knew the risk that I took with him. That is now an extra transfer that I need to make to take him out, probably. I will wait on that just in case he's fit again, but even if he is fit for Game Week 17, there's a good chance he doesn't start, and I just don't think James is a player that I want when he's either getting booked, suspended, or injured. He's probably just is not worth the investment in him. Palmer got a booking. I now think Palmer's on 4 yellow cards, and that makes him obviously a risk that he could, if he picks up a yellow card in 17, go into Game Week 18, the blank, he could be suspended. And he didn't look fantastic. I mean, Chelsea didn't look fantastic, so I'm not going to put that all on Palmer, but not ideal at the moment to have 2 Chelsea. But with their fixtures, you've got to think that they will start to improve soon. And they've got Sheffield United at home next week. So I'm hoping that fixtures breed form and that they start to improve. But Sheffield United were very, very good. They pick up their first win of the season under Chris Wilder as well. Maybe Sheffield United won't be the team to target anymore. Maybe we'll start to see an improvement in their performance. So, yeah, Chelsea disappointing overall. We'll discuss like Saka and Watkins, I suppose, next. Aston Villa at home, 1-0 against City, 1-0 against Arsenal. I will just say the performance against Arsenal was slightly lucky. I'm not saying they didn't play well. I only watched the highlights, by the way. I didn't get a chance to watch the full game. But looking at the XG data, looking at the highlights, Saka, Martinelli both had a big chance each. I think Arsenal in general probably had 5 or 6 very good chances to score. And on another day, they come away with a 2 or 3-1 win. So I actually think that they were slightly lucky in that game. But it does show how good they are at home. To get a 1-0 victory against Man City, the way they played in that game as well, and then against Arsenal, at home, Aston Villa are one of the best teams in Europe. And it means that when a player has Aston Villa away, you should consider that as difficult, if not more, than if they had something like Man City away. And that's something we need to start thinking about with our teams. And then the only other player to discuss is Alvarez. I was buzzing, obviously, when Haaland, not because of the injury, and I should note that, but when I found out that Alvarez would probably be starting as the number 9, and we've heard Pep say before, Alvarez is a great penalty taker. Alvarez as the 9, on all corners, some free kicks and penalties, I was like, this is a double-digit confirmed. I've struck gold by having Alvarez, and he picks up a single assist. And this goes back to the unpredictability of FPL. But I do think Alvarez is a good option longer term if Haaland is out longer term. I will just say on Haaland, the latest update that we've had is that it's not a fracture. It's just a reaction, I think Pep called it. And Pep said he's hopeful that Haaland could be back for Crystal Palace. And if not Palace, back for the Club World Cup. Of course, the issue is Haaland blanks in 18. So if he's not back for 17, he's not back until 19. So I guess for Haaland owners, you'll have to wait as long as possible. Hopefully you get a definitive update and we find out if he plays against Palace or not. If we don't get a definitive update, I would probably hold him just simply because he is going to be the best captaincy option if he does play against Palace at home. But I'm sure we'll get updates throughout the week. That was my week though, 59 points. And it actually ended up being almost a 200,000 place green arrow. So I'm delighted. Considering only Son, Salah and Alvarez returned, everyone else blanked. To only have 3 players returning and to get that sort of green arrow, delighted. So Game Week 16 went very well, but my defence in particular is an utter mess for Game Week 17. So let's take a look at what my current transfer plans are and how the team is currently looking. So looking ahead to Game Week 17, it is very, very clear where I need to use both of my free transfers. And luckily, I do have 2 free transfers and 2.1 million in the bank. So I am in a good position to deal with my issues. But I would still love to have 4, 5, 6 transfers. I suppose the benefit is I don't have Haaland. So if Haaland is out for 17, or if he's such a major doubt that people do end up removing him, I am 1 transfer ahead in that my structure is already in a non-Haaland structure. And not only that, like if people sell Haaland, they might have to sell Haaland for like a Solanke, which is a great transfer, by the way. And we'll discuss Solanke in a second. But it also means that they then don't have the ability to spread the funds around with more transfers unless they take a hit. So I am in a very good position that I don't have Erling Haaland, assuming, again, that he isn't available for 17. If he is, then we're very, very equal. And a lot of my attackers are fine as well. I have a lot of the attackers that you would want to own. My issue really is my defence. But we'll discuss the attack first because there are less issues. The midfield, I'm actually very happy with at the moment, right? Son, Salah, Palmer, I think are in most people's teams and you would want most of them. Sorry, Saka, Son, Salah, Palmer. Those 4 that are in the 11. I don't feel the need to take any of them out. All 4 are on penalties, we think anyway. 3 of them have a home fixture. Son doesn't have a terrible fixture away against a Forest team that have been conceding chances. And I think I arguably have the best captaincy option this week, again, if Haaland isn't confirmed as fit, in Mohamed Salah at home against Manchester United, because United are terrible. And especially when we go to Anfield, we always get battered. So I think Salah is, even if Haaland is fit, Salah may well be the best captaincy option this week. So those 4, I don't need to touch them. Yes, I am aware that obviously Palmer and Chelsea haven't been fantastic and that Sheffield United look a little bit better under Chris Wilder, but it's still Sheffield United at home. So those 4, absolutely fine. And then I have Martinelli on the bench. And whilst Martinelli hasn't been fantastic, I thought he looked slightly better in 14 and 15 and 16. I think we're starting to see a bit more of the old Arsenal attack. And Martinelli did look decent. So whilst he didn't haul in Game Week 16, he didn't actually return. And I know Arsenal didn't actually score any goals against Aston Villa. I still liked what I saw from Martinelli and from Arsenal a little bit more than I have recently. So if I have to play Martinelli, I don't have an issue with that. And actually, I would love to try and find a way to get Martinelli into my starting 11. So the midfield 5, I don't think I'm very likely at all to use a transfer there because I think I'm pretty happy with all 5 of them. And to be honest, the 3 forwards, I don't really need to take them out either. Ollie Watkins is Ollie Watkins, the best captaincy option probably, depending on how Sheffield United look against Chelsea, probably the best captaincy option in Game Week 18. If not, it will be Heung-min Son, but one of the better options, and we just know how good Ollie Watkins and Aston Villa are. So Watkins is fine. Alvarez, I suppose if Haaland is confirmed as back, Alvarez may still be worth selling, simply because I think sooner rather than later he will get a rest. And I'm still not been entirely convinced by him as an FPL option. But obviously, in the absence of Haaland, it gives him two things: penalties and the number 9 role. So it immediately makes him an absolutely fantastic option. So I probably won't sell him regardless, but it's definitely a better option in the absence of Haaland. So he'll probably stay in my team. And then I have Darwin. Darwin is probably the most likely of my attackers to be sold, simply because from now onwards, the fixtures do get a little bit trickier for Liverpool, especially the home fixtures. They're not great. Darwin's data has been good, but not exceptional. And on top of that, he started to go back to the old Darwin from last season where he's just not converting his chances. So a little bit frustrating as an own. And the main reason I would be happy selling Darwin is I think Solanke for the next 3 looks brilliant. And again, if Haaland is out or you want to remove him anyway, I think a lot of people go from Haaland to Solanke, especially due to the funds that frees up. So Darwin's not an issue for me, especially going to Anfield to play against Manchester United. I think he could score a hatful. But I also don't think that I've ruled out completely the idea of probably doing Darwin to Solanke. But the reason that at the moment I'm not planning that, we'll move on to now the issue. Look at this defence. It couldn't possibly be any worse. The only way it could be worse, I suppose, is if I only had 1 free transfer. So the blessing here, 2 free transfers and 2.1 million in the bank. I can basically move to whoever I want. I could even find a way to stretch to Trent if I want to. But with the fixtures the way they are for Liverpool, and with a lot of the other cheaper options I've got, and with also eyeing up maybe a move back to Haaland at some point, but also some of the other attackers, I don't think I want to go all the way to Trent. So let's just run through it. Trippier suspended, Taylor suspended. So they both picked up the 5 yellow cards, which means neither will be available for 17. The great thing about that, though, and the reason I'm not too upset, is it means they'll both be available for blank Game Week 18. Taylor's got Fulham, Trippier's got Luton. So this is good in that it confirms to me that unless they obviously pick up a red or something like that, although they will still be available. So it confirms to me that they'll both be available for Game Week 18. I also think Kieran Trippier needs a rest. And I think if he didn't pick up this suspension, at some point he would have been given that rest anyway. So what we call this sometimes as a bit of a joke is enforced rest. He has had his rest enforced by the suspension, but I think he needs that. Also, Fulham have been exceptional recently. Like, absolutely ridiculous. We'll discuss Fulham probably in the Game Week preview video and look at some of their assets that we might want to bring in. But it also means that I don't have to play double defence against a very, very good Fulham team. So, Trippier and Taylor out, not ideal for this week because it makes the other 3, I'll need at least 3 other defenders. But I guess it's one of those things, isn't it? And at least they are available for Game Week 18. Then I've got 2 players with tricky fixtures that I don't want to own longer term, which is Tsimikas and Guéhi. Tsimikas is probably fine this week because I would expect him to start, I think. But we'll have to wait and see what happens in Europe. If he starts in Europe and Gomez gets a rest, maybe we're more worried. But I think Tsimikas will be fine for this week. And Manchester United haven't been good. And we never are when we go to Anfield. So if I have to start Tsimikas, which I probably will now, it's not the end of the world. Guéhi, I really don't want to start. As bad, or not as bad, as average as Man City have been recently, I would be extremely shocked if Crystal Palace keep out Man City at the Etihad. So, don't want to play Guéhi. Tsimikas I could end up playing, which then moves us on to the 5th and final defender, Reece James. I've put a yellow flag on him. It didn't look great, though. I would be extremely surprised, even if he is cleared as fit, if he starts in Game Week 17. I suppose if he is cleared as fit, I would probably find it difficult to sell him simply because it's Sheffield United at home. But I think it's probably still the right idea to do it anyway. So I suppose the plan at the moment is I don't need to sell Taylor because he's cheap and he's back for 18. I won't be selling Trippier simply because I don't need the funds. And then he's back for 18 when he plays Luton. So Trippier and Taylor will be staying. And Tsimikas, whilst I don't want him longer term, he's probably the least of an issue for this week if I think he'll start. So I don't plan at the moment anyway on selling Tsimikas. So with my 2 free transfers at the moment, the plan is to sell Reece James and Guéhi for 2 defenders. There are some obvious options. There are also some other options that could be decent. And it's difficult to know at the moment. Do you try and prioritise clean sheets and try and predict them, even though they are very unpredictable? Or do you just bring in players with loads of attacking threat? And I know immediately people say just attacking threat, but at the same time, there's only so many attacking returns that you can expect a defender to get. So you do also want to couple that with clean sheets. So just to recap, I am happy with the team. I'm happy with the structure. I'm in a good position with 2 free transfers and 2.1 in the bank. I don't think I need to touch my attackers particularly, even though I like Solanke. So it's probably James and Gakey out. So let's take a look at my watch list and players that I might end up bringing in. So there will almost definitely be a long section in the Game Week preview video where I take a look at all of the defenders at the moment, try and work out who's most likely to keep clean sheets, who's got the best attacking data, because I need to do that anyway for my team. And if I'm going to do the research, I might as well present that to you. So this is just kind of an initial idea of some of the players that I might be looking at, but defenders in particular, I will definitely be doing a deep dive in to the Game Week preview video. So if you've not yet subscribed to my channel, subscribe, make sure you tune into that, which will probably be on either Tuesday or Wednesday this week. And we'll try and select the best defenders at the moment. But here are the defenders that I'm currently considering. The only one that, I would be extremely surprised if I don't bring in, especially given the money that I've got in the bank, so money isn't an issue, is Pedro Porro. He's got everything at the moment. And I actually think that Spurs will keep clean sheets as well. But even if they don't, basically, if you've not been watching, he's playing as like an advanced number 8 at points almost like a number 10. He's playing in an advanced midfield role. And, again, potential for clean sheets. And I actually think with Pedro Porro, he's got a decent end product as well. I know he fluffs his lines a few times, but he is the kind of player, if he gets a one-on-one, often you would think, do you know what, he could finish that. He's got a great technique. He's also been taking corners as well. So, there is nothing to dislike about Pedro Porro. And he's not close to the suspension tightrope either at the moment. So, I love Pedro Porro. He'll almost definitely be coming in for me, unless something crazy happens where he's injured or something else crops up, which means I have to use my transfers there. I'll be bringing in Pedro Porro this week. So that one feels fairly certain for me. And I think this is the same for a lot of people. But other than that, there really aren't many defenders that stand out at the moment. I am actually genuinely still tempted to bring in an Arsenal defender. Brighton at home this week is not the same Brighton that it used to be. Burnley only conceded 1 to them, so that's not a bad fixture. And then post Game Week 18, and I could bench probably Gabriel in 18, after Game Week 18, I actually really like Arsenal's fixtures. And I'd probably want an Arsenal defender anyway. So I'm actually looking at Gabriel or maybe Saliba. I have the money for Saliba, so maybe I just go there. But I'm also thinking longer term, I don't want to invest too much money into my defence because at some point, post-AFCON and post-Asian Cup, I probably want Son, Salah and Haaland. So I'm trying to not invest too much money in my defence at the moment. Outside of that, Bournemouth have been ridiculous. They're the second best defence in the league over the last 4 game weeks and over the last 6 game weeks. And Senesi, I think it is, has been putting up unreal data. 3 or 4 games in a row now, he's putting up close to 1, if not over 1, expected goal involvement. I don't know how he's doing it, but from set pieces, he's been a monster. So, a Bournemouth defender, I never thought I'd be saying this, but they could genuinely be a great shout. Not a bad fixture in blank Game Week 18 either. And, it's been over a long enough sample size now to just say, I think Bournemouth are a good team. When it's 2 or 3 games, you say, maybe they just did a good spell. But when it's over 6 games, and when some of those games haven't been overly easy, they played against Aston Villa recently. I know Aston Villa away aren't fantastic, but still, the fixtures haven't been perfect. I think they are worth considering. It's another reason why I'm looking at Semenyo and Solanke too. So, Bournemouth defender could be a serious shout. And then outside of that, I'm actually still looking at an Aston Villa defender. But of course, that wouldn't be Matty Cash now. It probably wouldn't be Luca Dean or Moreno. It would probably be Konsa or Pau Torres. And I actually think that Konsa is as nailed at the moment anyway as Torres. But I just think longer term, with anything that can happen, Torres for me just seems to be the most nailed one. And Konsa does get a few early subs. And early subs sometimes are actually good if they're post 60. But I just feel like Torres is the safer one. For only 0.1 million more at the moment anyway, feels like a good one. Diego Carlos is actually 4.4. So if you don't have a lot of funds and you still want an Aston Villa defender, Carlos looks fairly nailed at the moment as well. So I think at the moment, as you can see by the highlighting that I've done here, if I were to make 2 transfers at the moment, it would be Reece James and Gakey out for Porro and Torres. And that means in Game Week 17, I'd be starting Porro against Forest away, Torres against Brentford away, and then I would be starting Tsimikas against Manchester United at home, with Dubravka against Fulham at home in goal. So whilst it's not ideal having to use 2 of my transfers on my defenders, I also think that's not a terrible back 3 and goalkeeper. Midfield-wise, I'm actually happy with my 5 midfielders at the moment, so I'm not really going to discuss that massively here. You can see some of the players that I'm considering. Johnson, Iwobi, could be Andreas, could be Willian. Any of those Fulham midfielders that seem to be scoring for fun at the moment. And then I've got Sterling, Bowen and Gordon. Not really that interested in making a midfield transfer though. And I can't see myself doing so. Even if I get an injury, I would simply just probably play Martinelli, who I've got set on the bench anyway. So midfield's probably not a major area for me that I want to target at the moment. Then we move on to the forwards. Lots of people obviously may end up selling Haaland this week and will be wondering, who do you move to? If that is you, I think there's 2 options. It's Solanke and Watkins for me. If you don't have Watkins, Watkins would be the priority. If you do have Watkins, it's Solanke. The next 3 fixtures are great. He is on penalties, but Bournemouth don't get pens anyway. But the non-penalty expected goal involvement is still great. If you do want to go all the way down and switch to like a 3-5-2, maybe if we're already in a 3-4-3, you could go for Semenyo. Just bear in mind that Semenyo does go off to AFCON in Game Week 21. And outside of that, I don't see that many options. Wilson is now back, which means Wilson and Isak will share minutes. And I mean, I might be missing someone, but I don't think I am. The forwards really just aren't standing out to me at the moment. I mean, I should mention Raul Jimenez, maybe, but his data's been good. Not fantastic, but decent. He seems to be fairly nailed at the moment, so you could go for Raul Jimenez. But I also wonder, do we need to see a little bit more from him over a longer spell? Or are we happy? Over the last 4 games, they've scored a silly amount of goals. So Raul Jimenez could be a decent option. It's a shame that he's not on penalties. It's a shame that Willian's on pens. Because if Raul Jimenez was on penalties, on top of the data that he's shown in the last few, and on top of how well Fulham are playing, could be great. But I think for me, fairly obvious, Watkins and Solanke are probably the 2 to own at the moment. I wouldn't dip into Darwin at the moment. I think you could probably do better than that. And whilst Alvarez is great, and I know people think, why don't I move to Alvarez if Haaland's out? I just think that the fact that he blanks in 18, and the fact that on top of that, he didn't even look that great against Luton, that much of a threat. I wonder if you could just do better. And I think with the next 3 that they've got, Solanke's probably the one if you're going at that slightly cheaper price. But obviously, Haaland could be fine for Palace. I would wait to make that move. I would not make it early. Wait as late as possible. For me, because I've still got 3 forwards I'm happy with, I'm unlikely to bring in Solanke, despite the fact that Luton at home this week could be a great one. So just to recap finally, Porro's almost definitely coming in, and it'll probably be for Reece James. And then it'll probably be Gahey coming out. And I've got Gabriel, Senesi, Konsa, and Torres that I'm most interested in at the moment. I mean, a Bournemouth defender this week against Luton at home could be good. So maybe that's the route that I go. But I just think longer term, an Aston Villa or an Arsenal defender will save me a transfer at some point, I would imagine. So that's the team. That's the watch list. Let me know down below what you're currently planning for Game Week 17. And of course, there'll be at least 3 or 4 more pieces of content before the Game Week 17 deadline. So guys, there you have it. That is my Game Week 17 transfer plans video. We need to sort out that terrible defense, and that will be my priority this week. Do let me know down below how many points you scored in Game Week 16 and what your plans are for Game Week 17. And if you did enjoy today's video, please do smash that like button and make sure to subscribe as well. We are trying to hit 110,000 subscribers before the end of the year, which is optimistic, but I do believe we can do it. Until next time, thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.